Hello, Richa ma'am. How are you?
I'm good, sir. How are you?
Very, very good. Good to see you. The screen, the backdrop has come. You said that might not come.
It is there.
It
It is
does come,
there,
yeah.
sir.
Unless you change. If you go to Microsoft Team, then it might change. I don't know whether
Yes.
Vinita ma'am is coming. She's not come, right?
I think she is waiting and she's in waiting room.
Then she should rush because otherwise it will not come. No, sometime soon it will be full.
Yeah, I'll just check.
Wow. He's wanting to come inside also. The pet.
She always mark her presence
Yeah.
that I am around.
Yes.
So Vinita ma'am has joined or still she's in
Doesn't look
waiting
like.
room? Doesn't look like.
Shall I call her up?
Ashok ji, please check Vinita ma'am. Ashok ji, can you please hear me?
No, ma'am. Vinita ma'am is not here.
Vinita ma'am is in waiting
Hello.
room. She is struggling to join.
No, ma'am.
Yeah,
Please
she's saying
check.
that the admin is not there.
She has to just click the link and join.
Hello, yes. Yeah, you've been able to join or no?
It says you're
So,
muted now. You're muted.
okay, so all right.
Can you hear me now?
I
Yes,
can hear
yes,
you.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Let me call up Dheeraj. What happened to Dheeraj? There are 987 people already. My God,
Yeah.
Dheeraj will not be able to come then. There's
996.
1,000 people only, no?
1008 can join.
Oh, wow.
And 4,500 registrations we received.
Wow.
And rest who will not be able to join can join on YouTube channel of Full Marks.
1,000 हो भी गया पूरा.
Yes. Now nobody will be able to join later.
धीरज तुमने ज्वाइन नहीं किया अभी तक 1,000 हो गया पूरा. अरे मैंने पहले भेजा था इसलिए ना 1,000 हो गया. करो अभी भी 1,009 हो सकते हैं. जल्दी करो ट्राई. नहीं तो फेसबुक पे जाना पड़ेगा तुम्हें.
No, YouTube.
YouTube पे सॉरी.
I've got a message. The host has asked you to start your video.
Yeah, to start. No, mine is on. Yours is not on.
So how do I? Okay. Started. Okay.
Yeah, started. Yeah.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Your backdrop is also showing very, very well.
Okay. Thank you.
Very professional.
Thank you.
So just 3 minutes are left to start.
All right, we are ready. I got a call from this school in Jaipur called MGD. They want to do a program on 5th September, which is Teachers' Day. So I have agreed I'll do it after 1 o'clock because I'm busy with another program till 1.
Yes.
So they said we'll do it from 1 to. I did one program at MGD Jaipur and they wanted to be, they said all the faculty saying, why don't you call Surya only? I said, wow, I'm lucky. So I said, I'll do it for sure.
That's too good.
I'm blessed.
We are blessed to have you.
I'm blessed that you are, you've invited me.
Two minutes to go.
Yes. Can you share the screen share? Let me see the screen share. Ashok ji, would you be able to share the screen later?
No, you are already enabled. You are.
Oh yeah, I'm enabled. Yeah.
You are already enabled.
Fine, that's good.
DPS Manali is also here.
Who's that?
DPS Manali. Quite a few DPS people.
All right.
From Manali.
Yes.
Acha, Manali. Oh wow, Bunny is also come. Bunny, welcome. I thought you'll not be able to make it because it's already 1,000 people.
Yeah.
Bunny, you're muted.
Delhi Public School Meerut.
Wow.
And it's moving so fast. My eyes can't.
DPS Jabalpur.
Yeah.
Oh wow. I know the Jabalpur principal. Lucknow, I also know Indira Nagar.
DPS
Lucknow.
Indira Nagar,
Yeah.
Lucknow.
Hyderabad. Hi all.
Oh.
So you are the iconic personalities, no? So everybody wants to listen.
I'm just a part of the teaching fraternity.
Actually, teachers are long life learners, so everybody wants to learn.
But it's fun. Today the program is awesome. I
Yes.
wish we could put a song in the beginning. Do you think I can put a song in the beginning?
Yes, we can put the song.
I think that'll look better than that film of Bambi.
Yes.
Bambi Godzilla के बजाय थोड़ा peppy number डालता हूँ मैं. That'll look better. I mean, at least we should look different. No, I mean they'll remember for this only. One thing only they'll remember. Give me 1 minute. I'll put that. And then we can ask a question, and they can put it in the box. Which is this?
I have to. Well, first of all, I will have to welcome everybody. Then
Yeah. Give me 1 minute. Yeah. After that, welcome. Just give me 1 minute.
Okay.
Is it already past the time?
No, it's exact 3 now. Exact 3.
Okay, so we're eliminating Bambi versus Godzilla. We're doing Sia song. Sia, what's the name of the song?
Ashokji, shall I start? YouTube is connected, Ashokji. Shall we start? YouTube is connected now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Please.
So, Vinita ma'am, please permit us to start.
Yes, start please.
Shall I, Surya sir?
Give me 1 minute. I'm just putting one song in that which I wanted to, but I forgot. Instead of the movie, I'll put the song. Give me 1 minute.
Sure, please.
This is Shape of You.
Good afternoon, Surya sir.
Yeah, good afternoon. How are you?
Great, sir. Good afternoon, Richa ma'am. Good afternoon, Vinita ma'am.
Good afternoon.
Happy to see you.
Same here, ma'am. Thank you. Richa, ma'am, please edit my name if possible.
Ashokji, please put the name
Bunny.
Bunny. Please change.
And also they have to put Surya as it.
Yes. I think that
Okay, let's
will
start.
be as per the ID. Okay.
All right. Mine is Surya Narain Bahadur only. Wow. All right, let's start.
Okay. With the song?
No, not the song. I'll play anyway.
Later. Okay. Thank you, sir. So first of all, a very good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of Full Marks Private Limited, I, Dr. Richa Sood, extend a very, very warm welcome to the epitome of knowledge, epitome of zenith of intellect, Mrs. Vinita Kher and Mr. Surya Narain Bahadur, the eminent speakers for the session of Bloom's Taxonomy, along with the role of quotients and my heartiest greetings to all the national and international participants, principals, heads, teachers, friends, and I feel that we are extremely fortunate and blessed to have the stalwart of education industry, Mrs. Vinita ma'am, Vinita Kher ma'am, and Surya Narain sir. So Full Marks Private Limited, the progressive publishing house, is committed to publish the affordable quality books for classes K to 12, has taken up the initiative through the series of webinars to broaden our horizons at the optimum under the able guidance of experienced, eminent academicians, pedagogical leaders, master trainers, master life coach, Vinita ma'am is former director of DPS Society. And today, I think we all know Surya Narain Bahadur sir, and Vinita ma'am is also very well-known personality amongst the educationists, educators, academicians. So today's topic is Bloom's Taxonomy. Whenever I speak this term in front of anyone, the moment shakes me with their jaw dropping. Being academician, being educators, it is the biggest necessity to understand Bloom's taxonomy. During the registration, we have received thousands of questions. We have incorporated maximum questions in our PPT. And today, I'm damn sure that all the curiosities will be unleashed and all the questions will be answered for the partially discovered Bloom's taxonomy. Over to Surya sir and Vinita ma'am.
Thank you,
Welcome,
Dr.
sir.
Richa Sood.
Welcome, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Richa Sood, and thank you, Vinita and Bunny, my colleague, and Ashok ji, and the director of Full Marks Private Limited. Would the director, sir, want to say something?
Mr. Rajat Gupta ji and Mr. Rakesh Gupta ji.
So, Rakesh Gupta ji and Rajat, would you want to say something? Would you want to say something before we start?
Sir, they are watching us on YouTube, so we
all
can
right,
go
so they're not. All right. All right.
They're watching
so,
us on YouTube.
All right. Okay, so welcome everybody from all over the world, planet Earth, and this is one unique program. If you have any question, do put it up. We have my colleague Bunny. Bunny, just wait for them. He will record your question. We will also would want to send you all the PPTs, everything that we show you, all the videos and everything is givable. And we want to give it to you. Please be accepting of them. We are the only company which shares all our videos and all the PPTs and everything that we share with you. All right, so before we start, Vinita, would you like to say hello to everybody? Introduce yourself, just say hello.
Yes, thank you, Surya. I'm Vinita Kher, and I've been director at DPS Society. Basically, I'm an educator. I've enjoyed teaching and I've also enjoyed learning. And together on this platform this afternoon, all of us are going to learn together. We picked up a topic like Bloom's taxonomy, so essential to classroom teaching. So therefore, it's going to be a pleasure to be on this platform. I'd like to thank Full Marks, Mr. Gupta. Thank you so much for having us over here. Thank you, Surya, and thank you, Dr. Richa Sood. Thank you, Bunny, for having us all over here. And look forward to a really engaging session in the next 1 hour or so. Thank you, Surya.
Thank you, and not to Mr. Ashok Mishra, who set us up in.
Mr. Ashok Mishra.
All right, so I'm going to start the first slide. Here's the mother slide, and then we'll move on. And if you have questions, please do drop in your questions in the box. And Bunny, my colleague, is going to put it up, and then we will send it over to you, the answers, or we'll answer it right away here. So here we're going to do Full Marks Private Limited invites you to this webinar called Bloom's Taxonomy, which is Benjamin Bloom, who started it. Taxonomy means that we have sort of segregated these 6 steps of evaluation or assessment. And we're going to be talking about how various quotients, which is IQ, EQ, SQ, PQ, and various, let's say, our traits and intelligences and our left brain and right brain and type we learn also are part of Bloom taxonomy. So we're going to be talking that. We will also put you for each level of Bloom taxonomy, how to assess the learner on each of them. And then we will give some examples. We also will share with you the 200 words which actually lead to like a psychometric test on checking as to what level of Bloom taxonomy is the highest for the learner, which is the second highest, what is the third highest. So we have this set of this thing, so we will show you that. Here is, so welcome, this is the program that we're having. This is the certificate which you'll get. Please register your name, put your name in and put your email IDs in so that we can send you the certificate as fast as the program ends. And what the shape of you, so this is video which I'm going to play. Just watch the video and see what you can create as you're understanding while we use Bloom's taxonomy. Benjamin Bloom's taxonomy will understand. Just listen to this video for some time. Here's the video for you.
The club isn't the best place to find the lovers, so the bar is where I go. Me and my friends at the table doing shots, tripping fast, and then we talk slow. Come over and start up a conversation with just me, and trust me, I'll give it a chance. Now take my hand, stop it, and the man on the jukebox, and then we start to dance. And now I'm singing like, girl, you know I want your love. Your love was handmade for somebody like me. Come on now, follow my lead. I may be crazy, don't mind me. Say, boy, let's not talk too much. Grab on my waist and put that body on me. Come on now, follow my lead. Come on now, follow my lead. I'm in love with the shape of you. We push and pull like a magnet do. Although my heart is falling too. I'm in love with your body. Last night you were in my room. Now my bedsheets smell like you. Every day discovering something brand new. I'm in love with your body. 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 Club isn't the best place to find the lovers, so the bar is where I go.
So this is Hollywood's biggest dance complex. I don't know how many of you noted that. Let's see how many of you can create what you noted. It's not the first stage, it's not the second stage, it's not the third, the fourth, or the fifth. It's the 6th stage of Bloom's taxonomy. If you applied that, then you would have noted that. So let's have some people share. Yeah, Dr. Richa, are you saying something?
Yeah, it was a creation of dancing there.
Yeah, it was a creation of dancing, but what was the name of this world's biggest dance complex where they were dancing? So that is what you couldn't have missed. If I think so, people who have noted it, please type it out in your box and let's see how many of you type it right. All right. So prayers for great health for you and your families. Please follow these advice which are given by professionals. Wear a mask for sure. The mask will work like a vaccine for each one of us. And lockdown is opening up, so please avoid the red areas, and you can do the light green, the dark gray areas, which are low and minimum risk areas for COVID-19. The foundation of today's program is this question. And the question is, why do we send our children to school? And the answer is, don't they have the right to know? That's why we send them to school. So that's one very, very good question, pertinent question to ask. The intention for today's programs are quotients and intelligences, which are the foundation or the context of the Bloom's taxonomy. Why Bloom taxonomy? Why should we learn it? How it applies to learning? What are different taxonomies? There are 3 taxonomies which Vinita ma'am is going to take us through. What are the higher order thinking assessments? So how to assess the higher order thinking elements of Bloom taxonomy, or tiers as they are called, the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th, and the 6th tier. What is Bloom's taxonomy? Original versus the revised Bloom's taxonomy. Who uses Bloom's taxonomy? Then what are the various, so the lowest level is, or the foundation level is remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and final is creating. And what are the other visualizations of Bloom taxonomy? And finally, how it is relevant to us when we are doing online teaching. So the digital revised Bloom taxonomy and a video on that. So I'm going to show 4 videos to you, by the way. And here's the first video on Bloom taxonomy for you. So over to the video. Have a look. It's just for 3 minutes. Have a look.
Bloom's taxonomy is a toolbox that teachers or students can use to classify and organize learning objectives. Its most popular version is based on the cognitive domain and assumes that learning should be structured from easy to difficult in the following 6 steps. 1. Remember. 2. Understand. 3. Apply. 4. Analyze. 5. Evaluate. 6. Create. On the first level, we learn to remember. There is just rote memorization and recollection of facts without much understanding. For example, if we learn about lemons, we want to remember the name, shape, color, size, and that they are sour. Once we memorize these essentially meaningless facts, we move to the second level of learning. On level 2, we learn to understand. We begin to decode information and learn that a lemon is yellow when it's ripe to eat, and if we take a bite, that it's really super sour. We also understand that lemons love sunshine and that they contain lots of vitamin C, which is a great natural antioxidant that keeps us healthy. Now, as we really understand a lemon, we can work with it. On the third level, we apply what we know. We've understood that while lemons are sour, they are also a great provider of vitamin C. To apply this knowledge in a meaningful way, we could boil a lemon into hot water and add some honey. Then serve this hot lemon to our sick sister who's in need of treatment. On the fourth level, we learn to analyze. This involves examining and breaking down information into components, determining how the parts relate to one another, and finding evidence to support generalizations. We study the lemon flesh, examine the skin, and look at levels of vitamins. We conclude that we can eat everything inside, while the skin tastes bitter and contains traces of toxic pesticides. It ought not to be consumed. Now we are ready to evaluate. We analyze, critique, and compare. To evaluate our lemon as a good source of vitamins, we compare it to other sources, such as oranges and supplements. We look at the following properties: vitamin levels, affordability, taste, and packaging waste. If we evaluate our thoughts critically and without bias, we learn where the lemons score high and where others score higher. Now, after we have learned, understood, applied, analyzed, and evaluated, we are ready to create. As we now really understand lemons, also in comparison to similar things, we can formulate a plan to create our own natural lemonade. It's now easy to come up with a cute shop design, a good name, and a good slogan. natural, healthy, yummy. Bloom's taxonomy was first created in 1946 by American psychologist Benjamin Bloom. The revised version from 2001, as just presented, serves as the backbone of many teaching philosophies, in particular those that aim towards teaching specific skills. Each level usually comes with a clear learning objective that can be tested. Critics of the taxonomy often question the existence of a sequential, hierarchical link between each level. What are your thoughts? Please share them in the comments below.
So that was a video or a cameo on Bloom's taxonomy. Let's move on. So why learn Bloom's taxonomy? Because taxonomy is the science of naming, describing, classifying organisms, and it includes various things like plants and books and just anything, automobile and all that. So I've just taken an example how plants and animals and microorganisms of the world, an example of taxonomy is the way living beings are divided into kingdom, phylum, class order, family, genus, and species. So Bloom's taxonomy was developed to provide a common language for teachers to discuss and exchange learning and assessment methods. Very, very important assessment methods. Specific learning outcomes can be derived from taxonomy, though it is most commonly used to assess learning on a variety of cognitive level only. So please remember, it is everything to do with the brain, thinking level only. All right, the questions a parent or a teacher should ask for sure. So these are the questions. Why do we send our children to school? Why do I teach in a school? And what is the purpose of education? So these are the questions we asked. These are various questions which participants sent us. So there was a question from Yavatmal, is online classes how we can ask more questions related to Bloom's taxonomy based because of less time. Patel Nagar, somebody said, please tell me how can we assess the kids virtually? So we'll talk about that. From Anjar, somebody said, my question troubles me. Why do we need all this position of institute? Then somebody from Kutch says, in a regular examination, do we implement Bloom's taxonomy? From Patna, somebody says, difference between Bloom's taxonomy and blended learning and various other things. So there are places from Faridabad, Bhopal, Port Blair, Shiva, Sagar, Bhuj, Bhopal, Port Blair, New Delhi, Mehsana, Raurkela, Aligarh, and various other places. So we have answered all these questions. I just wanted to put this question. I've put some of the questions, though Dr. Richa Sood has got a large number of questions, about 1,000 of them. I've been able to put about, let's say, 70, 80 of them, which were common, the commonality. Okay, now we have these three H, the head, which gives us opinion, the heart, which gives us feeling, hand, which gives us action. So we have the holistic development. Why we're doing it? Because of holistic development of the child, which looks at physical and gross motor, fine motor, sensory, self-help, language, cognitive, emotional, social, and spiritual elements. So the educationists have all along been working for the all-round development of children. Educationists, psychologists have given technical names to these facets, domains, or quotients, let's say, in this. And therefore, they're called cognitive or intellectual, which is head. Then we have affective, which is attitudinal, which is heart. And we have psychomotor, which is actionable, which is hands. So these are three elements which they have referred to or have pointed at. So look at these three. So there's head, there's heart, and there's hand. And that's what they're referring to. Head is cognitive, heart is affective, and hands is psychomotor. So that's what they're referring to, by the way. All right, so these are various quotients. So we have creative quotient, we have intelligence quotient, we have emotional quotient, we have adversary quotient, how to manage, let's say, crises that we are in, for example, the COVID-19 crisis. We have an exercise for that, so we'll do that. Then learning styles, visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. Then we have various areas that the child has. So he has the IQ, which is the mind, then spiritual quotient, emotional quotient, social quotient, and physical quotient. And then you have the various quotient on the left and the right brain. All right. So on the right brain, you have interpersonal, musical, bodily, kinesthetic, existential. On the left brain, you have intrapersonal, linguistic, logical, and naturalist. So we assess all these because these are the contexts. The quotients are in the context. For example, let's do this diagram. So for example, this, let's say the creative quotient, which is CQ, which is creative quotient, actually comes to help or is the foundation for the last level, which is the 6th tier in the Bloom's taxonomy. So that is the role of quotients in the evaluation, where you have analytical and credence. Then in auditory and observational quotient is in the third stage. These are the high order thinking. These are the low order thinking. And in that also you have articulation, we have numeric, we have auditory. So all these are the quotient which apply to the learner as far as we assess the learner on Bloom's taxonomy tiers. All right, over to Vinita on various taxonomies used widely and various other things. Welcome, Vinita.
Thank you, Surya. Warm welcome, dear friends from the teaching fraternity. Pleasure to have you on this platform today. This is a little conversation that you and I are having, you and Surya are having on Bloom's taxonomy. And this conversation is going to take us to further understanding taxonomy and its usage in the classroom. Why do we use it in the classroom? First of all, to teach our students, and then later on to understand if the outcomes have been what we have expected out of our teaching. So therefore, Bloom's taxonomy or various taxonomies are related to child development, to holistic development. Now let's look at the first line, which says cognitive domain developed by Professor Benjamin Bloom. And the next one, the affective domain by his colleague, Professor Crothwall, and the psychomotor domain by Professor R.H. Dave, an Indian. Each of these three areas of human development now stands elaborated in terms of concrete hierarchies where each higher ability includes all the lower ones. These hierarchies are commonly known as taxonomies of educational objectives. So all of us teachers have educational objectives. Before we enter the classroom, we know exactly what is our objective. We have to plan it in our lesson plans. We have to understand that when we go to a classroom, why do we go to a classroom? And we have these educational objectives handy with us. The outcomes of growth engineered. The outcomes, look at these words, the outcomes of growth engineered in respect of the three taxonomies are jointly interpreted as human development or holistic development. So all of us are familiar with the words holistic development. We always say, remember the first slide that came up, why do we send our children to school? We send them because we want holistic development. We want our children to grow well. We want our children to be developed in all aspects. So therefore, we ask this very special question. Why do we send our children to school? And today, as we sit here, all of us before our screens, let's quickly write down a line. Why do we send our children to school? It is such an important part of our profession. And as parents, we have to understand, why do we send our children to school? Is it just to go to school and come back every afternoon? There is a specific reason why we send our children to school. And that's when we use the term holistic development. We send them for holistic development, for human development, to make them into good human beings, to make them into good citizens, to make them into participative citizens. And therefore, now let's look at the further slides. Now, this is a very specific and very dear diagram that I would love to share with all of you. Now, we spoke in the previous slide about three domains. The CAP, cognitive, affective, and the psychomotor. Cognitive domain by Professor Benjamin, Benjamin Bloom, the affective domain by Professor Crothwall, and the psychomotor domain by Professor Dave. Now, I'd just like to explain to you this little diagram. It's a little complicated, but yet not that complicated. Now, let's look at the bottommost, where it says curriculum. What is this curriculum? Who makes this curriculum? Why do we make this curriculum? Remember the first slide? Why do we send a child to school? So we create this curriculum, and this curriculum has teaching learning situations. Teaching learning situations. What are we teaching? How are we teaching? When are we teaching? What is it that we are going to put into this curriculum for holistic development? And then, now let's look at the topmost where it says pupil growth. Why are we using this curriculum? Teaching learning situations for holistic pupil growth. And what are we using in this curriculum? First of all, we are using the cognitive domain right on the left. Can you see it on the left, the cognitive domain? We start with remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, creating. The 6 different hierarchies to reach the cognitive domain. And in the center, we are talking about the affective domain, which is the heart, the growth of the heart, the response of the emotion, our sentiments, our feelings. And on the right-hand side, we look at the psychomotor domains, you know, the exercises, our body, our limbs, how our body is able to move. So therefore, the holistic growth of the child encompasses all the 3 domains: the cognitive domain, which is the intellect, which is the mind, the affective domain, which is the heart, and the psychomotor domain, which is the body. So all 3 of them coming together create this holistic growth for the pupil. So therefore, when you have curriculum, teaching, learning situations, our focus is pupil growth. And CAP, most interesting, easy to remember: C for cognitive, A for affective, and P for psychomotor domain. Next. Next, Surya.
Yeah, I've already put.
Yes. Now I'd like to talk to you about the classification, a cognitive, affective, psychomotor, the CAP classification. I am indebted to Professor H.S. Srivastava, former Dean, Measurement and Evaluation from the NCERT. He was the UNESCO consultant at International Institute of Educational Planning at Paris. He was professor at Institute of Development Studies at Brighton and the University of Shanghai. So this diagram has been worked along with him. I'd like to give you its history. When the CCE came in almost a decade ago, the DPS Society, along with a lot of experts, prepared an entire workshop mode and a little curriculum to understand CCE. And it is during that preparation, Professor H.S. Srivastava and us worked together to create this diagram. And this diagram is attributed to Professor H.S. Srivastava in the fact that we created a learning system for CCE. Next. Now, following what Professor Srivastava shared with us, I'd like to also talk to you about Professor R.H. Dave, formerly of the NCERT, UNESCO Institute for Education from Hamburg in Germany, and he was chairman of the Committee of Minimum Levels of Learning at Primary Stage in the year 1990. And I would urge all of you as teachers, please go through this document because it talks about minimum levels of learning. What are the minimum levels of learning towards mastery? Minimum levels from minimum levels of learning to mastery of learning. And I would also like to share with you how he presented the simultaneous growth in all the 3 domains, leading to a composite pupil growth through this diagram, which is presented by Professor R.H. Dave. So my good wishes, I hope my good wishes reach out to both of them for having nurtured us and for having enriched us. Next. Now this is high order thinking skills. Let's look at what Henry Ford had to say. Thinking is the hardest work there is, which is probably the reason why so few engaged in it. Can you imagine him thinking, hitting the nail on the head, that so few engage in thinking? And sometimes it happens to all of us when there's too much of thinking to be done, too much thought to be given. Often we step aside and say, chodo, kaun kare, isn't it? So let's look at it. Thinking is the hardest work there is, which is probably the reason why so few engage in it. But all people on this platform today have been engaged in thinking, and we are all going to think together to create meaningful exercises for our students. Now let's look at what high order thinking is, this HOTS, when it comes to us from various organizations. Now, what is HOTS? HOT does not include memorization. HOT requires that we do something with the facts. We must understand them, connect them to each other, categorize them, manipulate them, put them together in new or novel ways, and apply them as we seek new solution to new problems. Bloom's taxonomy, does it remind you of that? High order thinking involves metacognition. Now, what is this metacognition? It's thinking about your own thinking. Metacognition is thinking about your thinking. When a learner uses metacognition, they are contemplating and revising their own thoughts continuously to make sure they truly understand the information given to them. So metacognition is thinking about your own thinking. Next. No one thinks perfectly or poorly all the time. Memorizing something is not the same as thinking about it. You can memorize something without understanding it. Thinking is done in words and in pictures too. There are three main types of intelligence and thinking: analytical, creative, practical. All three intelligences and ways of thinking are useful in our everyday lives. You can improve your thinking skills by understanding the processes involved in thinking. Metacognition, thinking about thinking, is a part of the learning process. Now, what is Bloom's taxonomy and where did it come from? To share with you, indeed, when all of us came across Bloom's taxonomy, we racked our brains and we said, what is Bloom's taxonomy and why does it have to travel all the way from the United States to India? But then as we started practicing it, we thought we were enriched. Now, this is a picture of Professor Bloom, an American educational psychologist. He was noted for leading educational psychologists to develop the comprehensive system of describing and assessing educational outcomes in the mid-1950s. He has influenced the practices and philosophies of educators around the world from the latter part of the 20th century. So let's move on. What is Bloom's taxonomy and where did it come from? In 1956, he edited the first volume of the Taxonomy of Educational Objectives, the classification of educational goals, which classified learning objectives according to a rubric or a system or a rule that had come to be known as Bloom's taxonomy. It was one of the first attempts to systematically classify levels of cognitive functioning and gave structure to the otherwise amorphous, shapeless, nebulous, fluid mental processes of gifted students. Bloom's taxonomy remains a foundation of the academic profession, according to the 1981 survey, which says significant writings that have influenced the curriculum by Harold Shane and the National Society for the Study of Education in the United States. So that's a little introduction to Bloom and his taxonomy. Now let's look at the high order thinking skills and the lower order thinking skills. Now, the original taxonomy versus the revised taxonomy, not too much of a difference, but to do us well to understand that there was an older version and now there's a revised version. So if you look at knowledge on the left-hand side from the original taxonomy has been converted to be calling remembering, comprehension has become understanding, application has become applying, analysis has become analyzing, synthesis has become evaluating, and evaluation has become creating. So these are the 6 steps from the low order thinking skills, remembering, understanding, and applying are considered to be the lower level, whereas analyzing, evaluating, and creating are the HOTS, the higher order thinking skills. And as teachers, all of us have to understand that our teaching, not just questions, but teaching, our lesson plans, all our planning has to begin from remembering, move on to understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. And it is for us teachers to recognize that we have to continue to guide our students to the highest level of creation. We have to push them forward. We have to keep guiding them forward towards creation. Next.
Very important.
Yes. Now, assessment. You know, why do you and I assess every year? Why do we assess at the end of every month, or you have weekly tests? Why do we do it? Now let's look at a little bit at assessment of learning. What is assessment of learning? These words must be recognized and underlined. Assessment of learning is summative. The final. It can be in the final exam. It can be after a whole month that you are summarizing, or you are summative about what has been achieved in that 1 month. And what is summative? It provides data regarding how a student is performing at a specific point of time. 1 year, 1 month, 6 months, whatever the time is. So how a student is performing, and therefore assessment of learning. Assessment of learning is summative. Examinations at the end of a course, midterm exams, standardized tests are all examples of summative assessment. Now let's look at assessment for learning. From of learning, we come to assessment for learning is formative. It provides information for teachers, parents, and students along the way about how the student is performing with the intention of better guidance. We do this all the time. We have diagnostic tests, remember? We diagnose where students are going, when do they need to pause, when do they need a little more of help, and therefore, that is assessment for learning. Now let's look at assessment as learning. What is assessment as learning? Is designed so that the assessment itself is instructional. Assessment and teaching go hand in hand. Lesson planning, course, teaching, assessment all go hand in hand together. And therefore, assessment as learning is designed so that the assessment itself is instructional. It becomes a point of instruction. It provides feedback, and students are engaged in learning about how to improve. For example, when a teacher uses a scoring, you like to show the distinction between a low quality paper and the high quality paper of the students who did not perform at the highest quality. Assessment for high quality learning, assessment as learning, providing high quality learning. Given the opportunity to do the assignment in a system where assessment is seen as a learning event. Assessment is seen as a learning event. Students have access to their own data. So can I request all of you to relook, revise the place of assessment in learning, of learning, for learning, because that is what will trigger off our teaching. How do we teach? When do we teach? All that, what pedagogy do we use? What are the methods that we use? All that, along with the assessment, go hand in hand. Next.
Absolutely, ma'am. Absolutely.
Next. Now, students are well aware of how they are doing. You know, when they receive their grades, when they get their scores, when they get their papers, they're well aware of how they are doing. What needs to be used and how they can take responsibility for their own learning. Children are learning, students are learning on their own. We are guides. We are all helping them. We are nudging them, pushing them a little bit. And so when you've spoken to them about high quality learning versus low quality learning, they are aware of how they are doing, what needs to be done, what needs to be used further. And so they can take responsibility for their learning. We need assessments that are designed for learning, not assessments that are used for blaming, ranking, and
Yes.
certifying.
Very important, ma'am.
The message to all teachers, all academicians, that we need assessments that are designed for learning. That in turn requires shifts of attitudes. You and I have to shift our attitude about testing amongst parents, amongst educators and students, and among students themselves. There are places where the shift in attitude has taken place and where we have seen remarkable turn around the growth of new capabilities. A little difficult, but you will see that there will be growth of new capabilities if you shift the focus of assessment from only ranking and certifying and blaming and being critical. If you shift assessment to learning, you will find new capability, new capacities increasing in your students.
Yes, ma'am.
Now let's look at quickly at the original taxonomy, the old one. According to the original Bloom's taxonomy, the lowest order of thinking is knowledge. That's remembering something, and comprehension, knowing what something to use. These tiers were used as building blocks to help teachers scaffold their lessons and build students up to the top tier of thinking. You know, teachers, you and I have to build a scaffold. We have to build tiers. We have to build steps, you know, and we have to create some kind of level from where we can raise our teaching. Next. Now, if you look at the revised taxonomy, remember is the lowest form, which includes recalling facts and basic concepts. We can use the verbs for our work like define, duplicate, list, memorize, repeat, state. From here we rise to understand.
And please remember the ing word has gone. So there's no ing. It's not remembering, it's remember. Sometimes we still be writing remembering, don't bother about that. But the word is remember. And we will assessment, we will do on remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. Not remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating.
Yes.
So there's no ing, please remember.
So when we look at remembering or remember, we recall facts and basic concepts. And sometimes we use define, duplicate, list, memorize, repeat, state. These are verbs that we use in our questions because that is what we are doing when we remember facts, when we recall facts. And then we rise to the next level, which is understand. But when we understand, we also remember. We have to remember. We cannot understand without the word remember.
Yes.
When we understand, we explain ideas or concepts. We classify, we describe, we discuss, we explain, we identify, locate, recognize, report, select, translate. These are verbs that help us to create a learning situation. These are also words that help us to create questions. Next is apply. So when we apply, we have to use understand and we have to use remember. So when we use remember and understand and put it together with apply, we use these information in new situations. We can apply to new situation and we can execute, we can implement, we can solve, we can use, we can demonstrate, we can interpret, we can operate, schedule, and sketch. Look at the words. They are rising in terms of difficulty from remember to understand to apply. Now let's move up to the next tier. The next difficult tier or the higher level is to analyze. When you've begun to remember, you've begun to understand, you've begun to apply, you begin to analyze. The student begins to analyze. And when he or she begins to analyze, begins to draw connection amongst ideas, amongst thoughts, is able to differentiate, organize, relate, compare, contrast, distinguish, examine, experiment, question, and also test. Look at it. And then we move to the next HOTS, evaluate, the next tier. Remember, understand, apply, analyze, comes to evaluate. You're able to stand to a decision, take a decision. You're able to judge and you can appraise, argue, defend, judge, select, support, value, critique, and weigh. And then when we come to the highest point is create. We have the ability to remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, and then come to the situation where we can create. We can produce new or original work. We can design, assemble, construct, conjecture, develop, formulate, author. We can investigate. So look at the layers, how from the easiest of making a list, duplicating, repeating, defining, we have risen to design, assemble, construct, conjecture, develop, author, investigate. So we are rising in levels. This is our teaching and this is our assessment. Both go hand in hand. We are teaching our children. Now
there is a question. I'm sorry. There is a question in question answer box, chat box. So how can we design the question papers as per the Bloom's taxonomy?
We're coming to that. We're coming to that.
Right.
That's part of the program, by the way.
Yes.
we are coming to that. And this is, of course, a very simple, very basic description of the revised taxonomy. And I think, if we use this in our teaching processes and if we use this in our assessment processes, I think we'll do a good job in our profession. Next, Surya. This we will just quickly glance through. Let's look at remember. We just read this. Retrieve relevant knowledge from long-term memory. Just remember, retrieve information. When we analyze, we separate a whole into parts and determine the relationships. When we understand, we construct meaning from instructional messages. When we evaluate, we make judgments based on criteria and standards given to us. When we apply, we carry out or use a procedure in a given situation. Mostly, if you've seen technical people, they apply procedures. When even in the classroom, when you see students in the laboratories, when you've given them a set of information, they're able to apply it. And then when they create new salts in the laboratory, you can see they combine elements or ideas to form a new whole. In fact, you see it in all the subjects, in English and mathematics and sciences. You see this process happening. If you look at your own teaching, and I look at my teaching, I understand. I often go from remember, analyze, understand, evaluate, apply, create. Sometimes create seems to give us a miss, but we have to consciously see that our teaching and assessment both have the element of creation, the creativity in it. Next.
And why we are setting up question papers, look at the questions, how the questions have been put for each element in the critical thinking arena. Like, and remember, the first question could be, can you recall? In analyze, the question is, why do you think? In understand, the question is, what is the main point? In evaluate, the question is, which is the more important thing? In apply, the question is, what would you happen if? And in
Yes.
creation, look at the beautiful way to
Yes.
put a question paper. When you put it the final level of creativity, it says, what is an alternative to? Could you invent? Can you compose a? What is your theory about? How can you imagine? And what could you design to? Let's
Yes.
say, for
Yes.
example, what could you design to find a solution to COVID-19? Can you get that? So you could say I could design a vaccine which handles all the mutable elements of the virus from all the SS to AA to AL or whatever unit has mutated to finally and all that. So you already remembered, analyzed, understood, evaluated, applied, and then created and then reached to the final level.
All the participants, please see whatever is written in the slides and see, remember, bottom of this pink box. So everything about the assessment, how to design the things, what to be written in the question papers are already mentioned, because everybody is asking for the assessment, how to design the question paper, and how can we use during this pandemic online virtual classroom. So if you please read all these written lines in the boxes at the bottom, you will get your answers. And this PPT and this presentation is shared on YouTube also. You can even watch later to again and again to revise to understand all the things.
Or I'll share my
Thank
number.
you.
You can send your WhatsApp number. We'll send it to you or your email ID. You can send it
Yes.
right away in the box. We will mail it to you right at 6 o'clock today, or let's say
Yes.
4:30 when we finish. Like 4:30 or whatever time we'll finish. 4:30 we'll finish. We'll mail it to you at 4:30 if you want it, please, and please take it. We are Full Marks is the only company which gives PPT. No other person on
Yes.
the planet Earth who's doing webinar is giving the PPT. Please take
Yes.
them. It will come handy for you. They've been designed for you, by the way, by experts like Vinita
As
Kher.
as full marks is saying, get the full marks, and we are giving the
Yeah,
full marks. And you can even give the full marks by using all the PPTs, by
beautiful.
using YouTube knowledge everywhere. It is available for you by full marks. So
And
in
please
that way,
share it with people. I
yes,
would recommend share
yes,
it. Say,
go
who
and
gave it
train.
full marks, people gave it.
Go and
Like, share
trained.
it. Yeah.
Yes, go
Give
and
it to people.
trained.
Yeah.
Yes,
Give
yes,
it to people. Just distribute. All right.
yes.
Sorry, Vinita, over to you.
Thank you, Surya. Thank you, Richa. I think yes, because can we go back to the previous one,
Sorry,
please?
sorry.
So, dear teachers, um, we understand this predicament that you're going through. What kind of questions should be there when you prepare your assessments or your question papers? Now, if you look at all the questions here, these are only exemplars, and but it will give you enough idea when you start reading on your own, from remember to create the different levels of questioning, because from the lowest, from recall, you will find that you're coming to very critical thinking questions. You will
Absolutely.
find that you are able to create questions
Yes.
that will help the child to develop the higher levels of thinking. So use these will be useful to you. Next.
Very, very good. Means wonderful, ma'am. The slides and the everything what you are talking
Now,
about, it's really
see again, for the benefit of teachers,
yes.
we've taken this slide and we have just put in a few words. These are verbs, okay? And as teachers, you will be able to create even 100 more. But here are some for you and for you, for right now. For instance, I'll just read the first two of each category. Suppose you have knowledge, okay? Understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, create. Sorry, this knowledge should have been remember, but
Remember.
doesn't matter. Define, simple word. We always give definitions. Define this. What do you understand by this? Okay. Solve, contrast, criticize, design. The next one is identify, interpret, change, connect, reframe, modify. So we have some words here. They may suit you, they may not suit you. You're free to create your own words, you know, your own verbs. VERBS, verbs, doing verbs. Next, Surya. Now, let's look at revised taxonomy application on self-management. Metacognition, or thinking about one's thinking, is the core literacy of lifelong learners. When students have the skills to process and refine how they are learning, judiciously applying strategies and analyzing mistakes, they have the keys to self-directed growth. Isn't this what all of us are aiming at? To
Yes.
self-directed growth. And how does this self-directed growth happen? We have to teach children metacognition. And metacognition is thinking about one's own thinking. Go deep down into your thoughts and understand. Reflect upon what you're doing, what you're thinking. And this is the core literacy of lifelong learners. Don't we all say we are being lifelong learners? Don't we all say we have to create students with lifelong learning? So this is it's a major attribute, metacognition of lifelong learners. When students have the skills to process, look at the two words, process and refine how they are learning, judiciously applying strategies and analyzing their own mistakes. You know, the ability to analyze whether I'm doing the right thing or wrong thing, whether I need to improve myself. They have the keys to self-directed growth. Help them. Help children with metacognition. We have them as teachers. You know, they come to us, and therefore, this 5 minutes of that little nudge for students, it'll go a long way in their life. Next, the next one, yeah. Now, this is indeed a very interesting classroom picture. And you and I think all have seen children like this. So self-improvement, use of HOTS. Are we really thinking? What are these children doing? Are they thinking like HOTS, or they are thinking lots, or they are actually, what are they thinking? Let's think, let's look at it. Next. I love this picture, so love it so much. Little children. Now, this is, just a few questions that again will help you to understand Bloom's taxonomy. Now, the first, right at the bottom, you ask, who was the main character? Who was the author? Who was the scientist? Who was the engineer? The next one, what is the main idea of the story? What is the main idea of this experiment? What questions would you ask in an interview with the main character? See, from remembering to understand to apply, we're rising. What questions would you ask in an interview with the main character? Asking your students to prepare those questions. Analyzing how is the story related to your life. Let them think. Again, metacognition here. Let them think, keep thinking. And then evaluation. What choice would you have made if you were in the story? Let them reflect. Let them understand the story further. And then to create, how would you adapt the plot to create a different story?
Wonderful, ma'am. बहुत खूबसूरत.
You're making an author from asking the first question, who was the main character? What is the idea of the story? And then you have risen high and you have created that student into an author who's able to be a story writer, who can write pages of writing. Someone might just write one page, another may write 2 pages. And then you never know, from this exercise will spring up authors and poets. Next. Now, this is something that it's very dear, and it explains a lot of what we are doing today. Let's look at how much a lecture impacts learning. 5%. Let's look at the tip of this diagram, the tip. 5%. A lecture, you and I talking in the classroom, is only 5%. Reading is only 10%. Audio visual is 20%. Demonstration is 30%. Discussion is 50%. And practice by doing. Learning by doing is 75%. And when you begin to teach, it becomes 90% or even more. So therefore, it tells you where we as teachers stand. Do we lecture? Do we read? Do we use audio-visual demonstrations, discussions, practice? And do we make children teach us sometimes? The flipped classroom, when children come back.
Blended and flipped classroom, yes, ma'am.
So then, maybe you can use a mixture of all these when we talk about blended classrooms. All this is here, a little of this, a little bit of that, sometimes technology, sometimes face-to-face, sometimes audio-visual, sometimes only audio, sometimes teaching others. Everything put together can create a lot more retention, and our teaching becomes so much interesting. Next.
Now we are doing assessment for each level. This is tier number 1.
Now this is something that, everybody's been asking. But then before I begin on assessments, I'd also like to share, both Surya and I talk about assessment and teaching. They go hand in hand. So while we are talking about assessment,
very important.
At the back of our minds, we're also looking at our classroom practices, our classroom teaching. What are children learning? What are we teaching? So all this is a reflection on our classroom practices.
Also, please remember the words. These are 2 different words. So there's assessment and there is testing.
Yes.
In testing, there is right or wrong. In assessment, there is no right or wrong. It's just understanding the fitment of the child, that what level is here. So we're not saying blaming, no blaming, nothing. In testing, there's a blaming. 2 plus 2 is always 4. And therefore, if he writes 5, it's wrong. So this is not testing. Please remember, Bloom's taxonomy is not testing. It's assessment, which is just saying what level the person is at. That's it.
Yes.
Please, Vinita, go ahead. I'm done.
Yes. So these are some words, this is just to help you recall these words. Choose, tell, spell, list. These are verbs that you will use when you're taking up a lesson. Label the diagram, find the answer, match the following, define a particular aspect, relate this to that, name, tell, choose, spell, list, the lowest level. That is remember, just to remember.
Lots.
Next. Now let's look at a few questions. What is, where is, you can fill in the blanks with whichever subject you're comfortable, whichever topic. What is, where is, how did this happen, why did it happen, when did it happen, how would you show this, who were the main characters, which one, how is, when did this happen, how would you explain this. See, these are all lower order and we use them. Nothing wrong in it. Nothing wrong
For
in it.
level 1 only, remember.
Level 1 or tier 1, as you can call, whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
Can
So I
you-
think everybody is getting the answer as per the levels. Actually, everybody is asking as per the levels, how can we create the question paper? So this is the answer for everybody.
Another way to do it is another further. Next slide is even better. Have a look. Shall I move on, Vinita? Shall I move to the next slide?
Yes, yes.
All right. The next is how to use that in lessons.
Yes. Now, when you take a lesson, maybe you can rise a little higher. Okay, make a list instead of just writing how, when, where, because the child really doesn't have to think too much, So the idea is to create more reflection in the classroom. So make a list of the main events. So he or she has to think. Make a timeline of events. Make a facts chart. Write a list of any piece of information you can remember. List all the characters in the story. Make a chart showing the War of Independence or
The art application that they are talking of
Exactly.
now.
Nothing could be better than this. Wonderful, ma'am.
So we look at the rise in the standard of your questions. Okay.
And you
Now,
could use these
And
websites
slides and
to get
websites
some.
are for references also given. I think nobody will give you all such information. See, we are there to give you, enlighten you on each and every step.
Second level now.
now let's look at understand uh, some verbs that will help you relate, show, illustrate, interpret, compare, rephrase, explain, classify, outline, demonstrate, summarize, translate, contrast, extend, infer.
Infer.
Okay, so these are some words that will help you create your questions, or even while you're talking in class, you can use these rather than what do you do, how do you do. These are very direct questions, and you know they do not take you further than one word answer. So try and use these. How would you classify the type of viruses? How would you compare this, contrast it? Will you state or interpret in your own words? How would you rephrase the meaning of this word? What facts or ideas show that COVID is began in China? How would you summarize COVID? What is the main idea of the lockdown? Which statements support that lockdown should be completed on a certain date? Can you explain what is happening? What is meant by COVID? What can you say about COVID from China? Which is the best answer to this? So some questions here. Let's move on.
But still, we are on lower order thinking.
Yeah, still it's low.
Yes.
Newer ways
Yes.
to phrase our questions. Look at it. Cut out or draw pictures to show a particular event. Illustrate what you think the main idea was. Make a cartoon strip showing the sequence of events. Retell the story in your own words.
The storytelling element, yeah.
Yes.
Storytelling, cartoon, drawing, art, integration. Paint a picture of some aspect you like in this particular chapter. Again, art integration.
Yes.
Write a summary report of an event. Story writing, summary writing. Prepare a flow chart to illustrate the sequence of events.
This is also happening. Flowchart is one big thing these days.
Yes.
And make a coloring book. Again, your art here.
And these are the websites. Third level.
So, so third level, make, utilize, identify, model, apply, build, organize, experiment, solve, select, plan, interview, construct, develop, use, choose. So these are some words that talk to us about application. And the simple level of questions, how would you use? What examples can you find? How would you solve using what you've learned right now? How would you organize Bloom's taxonomy to show cognitive development? How would you show your understanding of Bloom's taxonomy? What approach would you use to assess students? How would you apply what you've learned to develop Bloom's taxonomy? What other way would you plan to teach Bloom's taxonomy? What would result if Bloom's taxonomy was used? Can you make use of the facts to help you learn Bloom's taxonomy? What elements would you choose to change Bloom's taxonomy? What facts would you select to show Bloom's taxonomy? And what questions would you ask in an interview regarding Bloom's taxonomy next? So then we have a higher level of questioning. Look at it. Construct a model to demonstrate how it will work. Make a diorama to illustrate an important event. Again, look at art coming into it, how maths is coming into this. Make a scrapbook about the areas. Make all the creative aspects. Make a papier-mâché map to include relevant information about an event. Take a collection of photographs to demonstrate. Make up a puzzle game showing the ideas from an area of study. Make a clay model, design a market strategy, dress a doll in costume, paint a mural. So look
We,
at the levels rising.
yes.
Oh,
So now we are entering in the HOTS,
Higher. Next is not, yeah.
higher order thinking
It's
skills.
the higher order.
yeah, so now we've stepped higher and look at the difficult words that have arrived on this slide. And then we look at motive, analyze, examine, assume, contrast, distinguish, survey, function, inspect, relationships, compare, dissect, divide, inference, simplify. So at whichever class you are in, use the word suitable for your class. You should use age appropriate vocabulary. So before you use this, be very careful. So look at this. What are the parts or features of a flower or a plant? How is this related to a particular event? Why do you think? What is the theme? What motive is there? Can you list the parts? What interference can you make? Inference can you make? What conclusions can you draw? How would you classify? How would you categorize? Can you identify the different parts? What evidence can you find? What is the relationship between this and that? Can you distinguish between COVID and the Spanish flu? What is the function of a vaccine? What ideas justify the use of a vaccine? Let's move on. We see some more higher ones. Now let's look at higher level questions. Design a questionnaire to gather information. Look at all the work done to design a questionnaire. A lot of reflection, a lot of thought gone into it, a lot of research. Write a commercial to sell a new product. Advertising, commercial, look at it. You'll have to watch a commercial. She'll have to read some more to sell. Conduct an investigation to produce information. So you have to conduct, talk to people, construct a graph to illustrate selected information. So begin some art, mathematics, look at all interdisciplinary. Make a jigsaw puzzle. Make a family tree showing relationships. Put on a play about the study area. Write a biography. Prepare a report. Arrange a party and record as a procedure. Review a piece of art. So look at this kind of work. It has suddenly risen and it has involved you even more directly towards research, reading, questioning, asking. So therefore, look at the different levels. Level 5, evaluate. Our words are getting even more difficult. If you look at it, assess, deduct, mark, agree, explain, opinion, determine, interpret, prioritize, conclude, justify, prove, judge, means, measure, support, criteria, appraise, evaluate, importance, choose, perceive, rate, influence, disprove, recommend, dispute, defend, compare, estimate. So look at the level of vocabulary that's rising. Look at the level of verbs that is rising. And now let us look at this. Do you agree with the actions? What is your opinion? What would you prove, disprove? Can you assess the value or importance of this? Would it be better if this was done besides that? Why did the character, choose a particular venue? What would you recommend instead? How would you rate the film? What would you cite to defend the actions of the character? How could you determine this? What choice would you have made? How would you prioritize? What judgment would you make? Based on what you know, how would you explain? What information would you use to support the view? How would you justify? What data was used to make the conclusion? What was it better? How would you compare the ideas? How would you compare people? Let's look at the raised level. Next, Surya. Now look at again, the levels are rising. Prepare a list of criteria to judge a film show or a theatrical show. Remember to indicate priorities and ratings, research, reading, conduct a debate about a special issue, for and against. So you have to read, you have to confer with people. Make a booklet about 5 rules you see as important to convince others. So you'll have to speak to people about those 5 rules. Conversation, dialogue, form a panel to discuss views. Again, dialogue, conversation, group work, teamwork, critical thinking. Write a letter to so and so advising on changes needed at school because of the pandemic. So when you're writing a letter, you just cannot write without references, without research. Write a half yearly report. 6 months report needs a lot of work. You need to read, write, discuss, refer, present your point of view. There too, you need a lot of understanding of what point of view means. So you have to do a lot of reading for that. So look at what the students are going to be working on. And look at this, the highest order thinking skill. The words have increased in their difficulty level. You can see estimate, propose, imagine, delete, suppose, compose, improve, predict, original, modify, create solutions, minimize, maximize, elaborate, construct, test, design, formulate. So as teachers, I think all of us are familiar with these words. It's just that this particular presentation has kind of put them into little slots. So we know which is the first level, second level, third level, fourth level, fifth level. So, but you're all familiar with it. Next, Surya. What changes would you make to solve? How would you improve? What would happen if? Can you elaborate on the reason of this? Can you propose an alternative? Can you invent a bulb? How would you adapt this particular machinery to create a different one? How could you change or modify the plot of this drama? What could be done to minimize destruction during an earthquake? What way would you design a hospital? What could be combined to improve the vaccine that is being created right now? Suppose you could, what would you do? Suppose you could make a vaccine. What would you do to create one? How would you test the COVID tests being taken on right now? Can you formulate a theory for an earthquake that is going to happen? Or you can talk about the COVID here. Can you predict the outcome if an asteroid were to drop down or hit the Earth? How would you estimate the results for a pandemic? What facts can you compile? Can you construct a model that would change a particular event? Can you think of an original way for the treatment of COVID were it to happen 5 years down the line? Next. So now let's look at the higher, um, higher ways of questioning. Invent a machine to do a specific task. Design a building to house your study. Create a new product, give it a name, and then devise a marketing strategy. Write about your feelings in relation to the pandemic. Design a record, book, or magazine cover for the school annual day. Sell an idea. Devise a way to sell this idea. Compose a rhythm or put new words to an old song. Look at all the creative work that's being done. Next. Now, this is a little orange, which is again compartmentalized all the verbs. I'll just read to you a few. Let's look at remember. Again, the same thing, describe, name, relate, write, find. All the 6 segments are here. They have their verbs here for ready usage by you. The next one, Surya. This has already been done. It's going to be done again, referred to again in the later. And this is a very interesting picture. And we thought we would share it with you. I'm a butterfly. And you start with remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, creating. Create an exercise with this. I'm a butterfly. After that, try and be creative and create an exercise for your students. Next.
Wonderful, ma'am. Butterfly example is wonderful.
Now let's look at this digital taxonomy and verbs. I think all of us are in this digital phase right now, online. So we are all online these days. You and I are online right now. And in the last 5 months, we've all scratched our heads many times, hit our heads to wonder what this online teaching is going to be like. You and I went into a classroom earlier, we interacted with our students, and if we couldn't explain this way or that way, we used many other ways to explain. We could use one sentence so many times to explain, use the blackboard, the whiteboard, and that's how we reached out to our students, we loved our students, we reprimanded them, and then suddenly this lockdown happened and all of us went zooming. And there we are. So we were happy to see Bloom's digital taxonomy and some verbs. So it was devised by Andrew Churches, and it's about using technology and digital tools to facilitate learning. This kind of engagement is defined by power verbs that can be used for everything from lesson planning and rubric making to curriculum mapping and more. This infographic features the span of the digital taxonomy. It begins with low order thinking skills on the left with remembering and ending on the right with creating and high order thinking skills. Listed beneath are the power verbs that apply to each stage. We are familiar with it, remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, creating. Now look at the pictures inside these circles, remembering is the mind, understanding how we put a jigsaw puzzle together, how we measure when we apply, how we analyze, look at that bulb clicking in our minds, look at us evaluating the machinery in our mind, and then when we create, we have this beautiful tree. We have created this tree. So look at all this also as an important part of understanding Bloom's taxonomy. Next, Surya.
I'll play a film now, quick one, whatever we can play, on digital Bloom's taxonomy. Have a look at this.
Most educators are familiar with Bloom's taxonomy, a model that classifies different levels of human cognition in thinking, learning, and understanding. As a teacher, you've likely used this taxonomy to guide the development of curriculum, assessments, and instructional strategies. But how is this model affected in an age of digital technology, and how might it influence your instructional design? Let's take a step back. Bloom's taxonomy was created in the 1950s by educational psychologist Benjamin Bloom and his colleagues. The three lower levels, knowledge, comprehension, and application, are more basic levels of cognition, also called lower order thinking skills. This would include concrete thinking, memorization, and understanding. The three upper levels, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation, referred to as higher order thinking skills, include abstract, critical, metacognitive, and creative thinking. Some have likened the model to a mountain or a stairway, where teachers set learning objectives and design learning experiences to guide students to higher levels of thinking. The taxonomy has become an important model for structuring students' learning processes. In the 1990s, Bloom's taxonomy was updated by a group led by David Krathwohl, one of the original authors, and Lauren Anderson, a former student of Bloom's. To make the model relevant to 21st century learning, one of their main changes was updating the nouns associated with each level to action-oriented verbs. This differentiation positions thinking as an action-based process rather than one of passive acquisition. For example, knowledge was replaced with remember, analysis was changed to analyze, and so on. They also reordered the last two steps. Evaluation, which was previously at the top, was moved down, and creating, formerly synthesis, was moved to the top. With this framing, educators have several different verbs, questions, and instructional strategies associated with each level. In recent years, there have been many iterations and metaphors for Bloom's taxonomy, including an orange, where the 6 levels are distributed more equally, moving cogs, representing an interworking system in which creation is dependent upon all of the other aspects, or a flipped pyramid illustrating an emphasis on higher order thinking skills. But in thinking about how technology affects this model, consider it as Bloom's digital taxonomy. This updated version aims to expand upon the skills associated with each level as technology becomes a more ingrained and essential part of learning. For instance, some propose that new action verbs can be applied within each level. Let's take a look at creating, in which learners are designing, inventing, and constructing a piece of work that shows what they know. One could add new digital verbs to creating, like blog, remix, or program. These verbs refer to possible learning activities that incorporate digital technologies in which students are creating. Adding digital verbs to the taxonomy also promotes 21st century skills like communication, collaboration, creativity, and critical thinking. Others have taken the 6 levels of the taxonomy and aligned them with technology tools that help foster each level. For example, as a teacher, you can think about how to integrate apps and websites that help students remember content, like flashcards or drill and practice tools. There are tools that help students analyze and make sense of content, like reading charts, graphs, or mind maps. Or you can think about what tools support student creation, like producing, podcasting, blogging, coding, editing, and more. With these examples, the focus should not necessarily be on the tools themselves, but on how the tools can be vehicles in transforming student thinking at different levels.
So these are some of the verbs.
Yeah, so these are some verbs. In fact, in digital taxonomy, we'll have to begin to use some of these words. Can we look at the red box here? Bookmarking, bullet pointing, copying, defining, describing, duplicating, Googling, labeling, all these words come into use. In the purple box, also, if you look at it, you'll find some very high order verbs demonstrating, describing, differentiating, discussing, discovering, distinguishing, generalizing, grouping, tweeting, tagging. So these are all words, that can be used when we are into this digital world. And again, this is another where you will see podcast, the previous one, Surya. The previous one, please, Surya. If we can, yeah. I'd like to just share with you, blogging is an important part, animating, adapting, collaborating. We do all this, when we are working on Zoom, collaborating, composing. This too has a lot of words. If you look at it, please look at this word: networking, monitoring, moderating, judging. All of us working together, collaborating. Okay, blogging, writing, filming. Our cameras. Students have their phones with them, so they're filming, they're facilitating, directing, judging, defending. So many words. Do spare a minute to read through these. Advertising, you'll really find it very interesting. And perhaps when you use these in your class, you make it into a very interesting classroom. Try and use it.
Absolutely wonderful, ma'am.
It's only an urge to all of you. Of course, there's so many words. Difficult to remember, but maybe you can create a little poster, put it in your room over your computer, and look at the word hacking. Hacking is also here. Okay, students they have to know what hacking is all about. Our vocabulary is changing, yours and I. Mind mapping. 5 months down, before this, we were really not too high on thinking of these words, and suddenly they've come into our lives. So put this as a little poster in your room and try and use some of these words at some time. And breaking down of information, you can do it through Google. So do use this poster, please. It's an urge to all of you. Next, Surya. I kind of really love this diagram, and all of you will be able to recognize our lives have become this. Look at remembering. Google helps you to remember. You forget something, and off Googling you go to. Look at YouTube. You want to listen to something, you go YouTubing. Yahoo. Let's look at TED Talks. When we are tired to understand something, we put on TED Talks, Twitter,
Yes, ma'am.
Skype. Look at all these little, when you're applying, you go to Picasa. When you go analyzing Mindomo, Google Documents, Remix. When you're evaluating, again, you have your Google.
Quality Circle, Toyota Club.
Everything is here for you.
Yes.
You just have to put it together, and you have to understand how digital blooms is going to help us. We're already doing it. There's nothing new. So it's all there, and I think this kind of put everything together. And now, as a teacher, let's all work on this. It'll just take 5 minutes more. It's been a long session, but both Surya, Richa ma'am, and I picked up a topic called COVID.
Yes.
All of us are familiar, over familiar with the word COVID-19. Okay. So whether you're a maths teacher or a science teacher or an English teacher, primary teacher, you'll understand what this is all about. So
Exactly.
let's look at Bloom's definition in remembering. Exhibit memory of previously learned material by recalling facts, terms, basic concepts, and answers. In this, you could have when did COVID-19 happen? Where did it happen? How did it happen? Which place? Can you name the place from where it happened? Very simple question.
Wuhan.
Why?
I answered.
Everybody knows.
Everybody can answer.
Everybody knows. And understanding. Maybe we can talk about. Can you explain what what is that market? The animal market is all about. Demonstrate. What do you, compare and contrast? For instance, let's compare how China handled the COVID versus to Spain. Let's organize the facts. How did it start? Fact one, fact two, fact three. How did it enter India? From where did it enter? Then let's look at application, solve problems. For instance, solve problems to new situations by applying acquired knowledge. So you already know enough about COVID-19. So create a question, solve problems. Suppose you were an inspector and you had to introduce a new COVID testing center. How would you apply knowledge from the last 3 months and write it down, put out facts, put out techniques, what rules would you have? And from there, suppose you went to analysis. And when you went to analysis, that's when you're making judgments. So again, you're an inspector deputed by the government of India. You have to prepare a report to submit to the government on why COVID-19 increased in your city from 500 people to 2,000 people. So then there you analyze, you talk to people, you put facts together, you collaborate with people. And then evaluation, again, here you are judging. You present and defend opinions by making judgments about information, validity of ideas, or quality of work based on a set of criteria. So therefore, there you are again, you have sufficient data about COVID in your city. Prepare a newspaper article about where there are COVID testing centers and what will be expected from both doctors and patients who will reach the center for treatment. So you can have a question like that, a creation, combine information together in a different way by combining elements in a new pattern of proposing alternative solutions. So when you put elements together to make it into a coherent whole, so if you can always ask them, so COVID has been a pandemic, the pandemic will end very soon, but suppose you were to live another 20 years, you're all students of 10 years, 12 years, you will be 30, 35 years. And suppose there is another pandemic which starts in some other place. What would you do? You were an IAS officer, what would you do? Or if you were a doctor, what steps will you take to make a healthy, happy, and welcoming hospital? Or if you are working at the airport, how would you organize people coming from on foreign flights? So therefore, you have to create, very interesting kind of questions, remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. So look at the verbs. Now, this is a diagram to tell you remembering, understanding, applying. Once you've done that, then you go to the higher level of analyzing, evaluating, creating. All three of them go together. Often they're all interwoven. These are all some words. They are verbs. We're going to send them to you by this evening. I think they should all be reaching you. Then there's this little film.
So we'll not be able to show the film. It's already past 4:35 now. So feedback. So that's my number. If you want some detail or you want some PPTs and all, you can send me your number or your email ID. This is Vinita's number. That's my email ID, and that's the address. So you can write it down if you want. That's my number. That's Vinita's number. That's our email ID. If you want the PPTs and all, you can send it on these numbers. So thank you very much. Have a great evening. Bye for now.
Are you there?
Yes.
Yes, we're here.
Okay. The thing is, first of all, I must say that we all should salute to Surya sir and Vinita ma'am, their desire to give and their energies. Anybody can guess the age of Vinita ma'am? And anybody can guess the age of Surya sir? So we have celebrated 18th birthday 2 days before. And really salute to both of you, sir, your energies, your desire to give. And the thing is, without taking a sip of water. So salute to your energies, your knowledge. So the thing is, here is a beautiful surprise from Full Marks for everyone. So Ashokji, please show. And Vinita ma'am, please bless this series because this series is completely based on quotients.
Okay. Timbuktu Early Learning Series.
Wow.
Yes.
Oh, that looks wonderful. Quotient exploring and nurturing to develop mental and analytical domain measures at the maximum. That's wow. Congratulations, Full Marks.
Really, congratulations, really.
And this
Congratulations, Rajat. Really great. Congratulations. Keep it up.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And this is completely based on Bloom's taxonomy and quotients in this.
Beautiful.
Wonderful, wonderful. It'll do very well and it'll reach far and wide to everybody.
Thank you.
The word quotient comes from this quantity. So what is the quantity of numeric in this? What is the quantity of verbal and all that is there?
Yes. And I think Rajat sir will say a few words.
Go ahead, sir. Thank you, sir.
And there is the announcement for other webinar also. Ashokji, I would request you to please show the next poster. And meanwhile, this is the next series of Gulmohar Hindi Pathyakram.
Wow.
Which Full Marks is going to introduce. And it's already running. I'm sorry, it's already running. And very beautiful book on Hindi Vyakaran, Hindi Pathyakram completely.
That looks very beautiful.
Amoli, again the Hindi Vyakaran.
Okay.
Kaksha 1 se 8 tak.
Very nice.
Ma'am, please bless all the books.
All blessings.
Surya, please bless all the books.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Blessings.
Thank you.
Your acknowledgement will be the biggest thing for the
Thank
books.
you. They're really good.
Yes.
Really great.
Vyakaran Parichay, Abir Hindi Pachmala.
Congratulations.
And this book will go to Gulf. This is specially made for Gulf countries.
Wow.
Amrita Hindi Pachmala, again for class 1 to 8.
Non-Hindi speaking student. Very good.
Wonderful. That's very nice.
And these are the
Congratulations.
books for Sanskrit, Anandam, Sanskrit Pathyagram. ये है I think class 4 or 5 to class 8.
Yes.
नाम बहुत अच्छे हैं रिचा, बहुत ही सुंदर नाम है.
जी.
Vinita ma'am.
Again, Sanskrit. And all credit goes to Full Marks and their team.
बहुत बढ़िया नाम दिए.
And this is the next webinar by Dr. Ravi Prakash Gupta. ये होगा बुधवार को 2 सितंबर को 2020 2nd September 2020. And I would say happy Teachers Day to all the teachers, yes, in advance, who all are attending the webinar. And that will be too good that we will do something. We will train others as a true teacher, what we have learned today. And I would now invite Mr. Rajat Gupta, the director of Full Marks, to say a few words. Rajat, sir?
Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yes.
Thank you, Richa ma'am. Thank you, Vinita ma'am. You were just saying about the age.
I think you have to close one device. I think you have 2 devices on, so it's echoing. You have to close one device.
Yes.
No, it's only one device.
Oh, okay.
Is it again? Is it okay?
It's like airplane voice.
I just can't help. Might be
Zoom.
noise or some outside.
Might be.
Outside noise.
But please say a few words. We are here to hear you.
You were just saying about Surya sir. The last time I interacted with him, the first time in fact, I miscalculated his age. I was thinking he's much younger, but he is. The energy he is having at this age is really marvelous.
Surya sir is of 64 years old?
Yes, I was just guessing him to be somewhere around 50.
And Vinita ma'am is above 80 years.
Oh!
I'm not disclosing the exact age, but see the energies, the enthusiasm, the desire to give. Like really hats off to you, ma'am and sir.
Thank you.
Again, on behalf of entire Full Marks team, I would like to thank all the participants in today's webinar. Somewhere around more than 2,500 people have attended today this webinar. This tremendous response we are getting for all these webinars are keeping us motivated to organize such webinars. I would again urge all the participants, all the persons, all the teachers to keep sharing their ideas. Any particular need about the webinar or other things like PPT or like certificates, you just keep updating us. I'm sure our participants would have definitely benefited from Vinita ma'am and from Surya sir, whatever they have shared, their ideas, their knowledge. That's it. Thank you, Vinita ma'am.
Thank you.
Just like a happy member for us.
Thank you.
I think
Thank
no doubt
you,
is left.
complete Full Marks team, Ashok Mishra ji. Once
And
again.
I think no doubt is left. And congratulations for the success of this webinar. As already 1,000 people, 1,000 participants were there. And I think we all are blessed and we have to do a lot. So little is done, so much is to do. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much. All the best. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Vinita ma'am. Thank you, Surya sir. Thank you, Rajat sir. Thank you, Full Marks.
Thank you very much.